Now, Apple is facing a legal claim accusing it of effectively locking 40 million British customers into its iCloud service and charging them, quote, rip-off prices. The consumer group Which is bringing the legal action. So let's speak to Lisa Webb, who's the consumer law expert at Which Consumer Group. Thank you so much for joining us here. Why don't you start by just explaining why you're bringing this action?
Well, we think actually that Apple has breached UK competition law. And we think they've been doing that they have a dominant position here. And actually, any organisation that has a dominant position has an obligation not to use that dominance to distort the market. Apple, we argue, is actually steering their customers towards their own services, not giving their customers a choice, and thereby reducing the amount of competition there actually is across the market. So for that reason, consumers are ending up overpaying for a product when actually if there was decent competition across the market, that product would be much cheaper and there would be more choices for them. So we think that they should be getting some money back.
Can you work out how much you think they're overpaying? Because Apple has rejected any of these suggestions, saying its practices aren't anti-competitive. They say their users are not required to use iCloud. It says that many customers rely on third-party alternatives and says it works hard to make data transfer as easily as possible.
Well, they would say that because they're Apple, but any Apple user will be well aware of the fact that Apple encourages you and makes it very, very difficult for you not to use the Apple ecosystem. You are sort of urged into it, and then once you're in it, getting out of it is very, very hard. We think there could be around 40 million UK customers impacted by this, and that's all iPad and iPhone users. Now, this claim is worth, in aggregate, around £3 billion. That averages out for individuals as possibly around £70 each. So this isn't an insignificant amount of money. And what we actually want to see is the market being opened up in a way that allows competitors into it so that consumers can have the choice to use other options and possibly cheaper options where they're available.
Give me an idea of the timeline, how long you think this legal action will actually take to come to fruition, and who actually decides?
Well, it's not a good answer, I'm afraid, because these things can take years. The reason being that competition law is particularly complex, but also when you're up against a tech giant like Apple, they will throw every resource they have at this to try and make sure it goes away, which, however, is in this for the long haul. We have filed our claim already, and we are willing to take this all the way. Ideally, though, what we want to see is Apple coming to the table now, coming sooner, so that we don't have to go all the way through this, so that actually we can resolve the situation and consumers who have been ripped off are actually compensated and the market can be opened up.
Realistically, though, how likely is that? Because when you look at the list, you have Facebook, Google, Steam, you have other leading mobile providers all facing some sort of legal claims at the same court, don't you? There are so many big battles going on between the big tech companies and consumers.
Yeah, you're right. And the reason that we are seeing this at the moment is it's a relatively new mechanism within the law that allows us to bring what we refer to as opt-out collective redress claims. Now, these are the types of claims that we as Which can bring on behalf of consumers, because otherwise it would be basically impossible for individual consumers to take on Apple in this way. Now, this has only been available to us for the last few years, which means that there is quite a lot of condensed action happening in the Competition Appeals Tribunal at the moment, which is the court seeing this. And that does mean that we haven't yet had one of these cases come to a conclusion. But we're really hopeful that once that starts happening, there'll be a knock-on effect. And actually, we will be able to reach conclusions on these sooner rather than later.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. It's a case to keep an eye on. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.